So at this point, we've put our chairs out on the table. Really what we'll do at this point is start to accessorize the table with mics, XLR cables, boom arms. And so one of the things that we do in our studio is we actually have these placemats just to kind of protect the top there. And so I'll put those out. And that's just specific to our studio. We like to put these out just to protect the top there. One of the features on our podcast tables are these grommets. And so each one of these grommet spots is a place where you can run an XLR cable. And really the way these tables are designed, because we have this front edge around the table, there's essentially two places on each wedge where you can mount a boom arm with a clamp. And so that's going to be next to each one of the grommets on the long side. So what that means at this point is, because we have a 4-piece table, we have 8 places where you can mount your arms, right? 2, 4, 6, 8. So you can do your arm here, 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 all the way around wherever you want. That's if you're clamping your mic arm. Otherwise, some people use tabletop mics, and that's just simply placing a stand on top of the table. So I'm going to show you a little bit about what's going to happen. You can actually order these Elgato boom arms from us. And so just a note about ordering Elgato boom arms from us. If you order a Podcast Table Mini, these boxes are going to already be opened, and we actually modify the bases to work with the Podcast Mini. But for these arms, they'll come closed, so you'll have to just cut open that little sticker there. And then you'll see that you have essentially 2 large pieces of the mic arm assembly. So you have your base with your clamp, and then you have your actual mic arm. And additionally, you're going to have this hardware bag. And so I just need to show you real quick. This is the adapter that's going to fit the majority of the microphones that are going to work with the Elgato boom arm. And so you can see how there's a thin thread here. It's like a 1/8 or 1/4 inch thread. And then we'll just screw this down on there. And then that's going to allow for us to mount our SM7Bs. But that's going to be, this size is a typical mic mount size, and so it does come with the adapter there. And then additionally, there's another adapter here depending on the kind of mic that you buy. And then there's also an Allen key that comes with these bases. And so what that does is, once we set this down in here, you're actually able to tighten this Allen key, and that's going to increase or decrease the resistance of the way that the arm moves. And so at this point, oh, you've got one ready. Here you go. Look, he's got a base ready for me already. And so essentially what we do is we'll just put this on the edge of the table over here, and then we'll spin that till it's tight. It's a real simple installation. You've got this that hits down in there, and then this is going to be going up and down because this wing nut hasn't been tightened. So I'm just going to give that a little bit of a turn to tighten that up. And then you'll see now how this moves kind of freely and quickly. If I tighten up this Allen key by turning it clockwise, it's going to reduce my resistance there. And so that'll just help give it a little bit of torque, and if someone hits it, it's not going to fly out of the way, that kind of thing. And then there's this joint here where if you adjust this wing nut, now you go up and down. And then there's this wing nut here, and that'll allow you to move this head around. It'll spin, and that will move up and down. So here we have the SM7B. These are the mics that we use in our studio. And so this has a little ring that will spin. And so essentially all I have to do is install this here. And with the SM7B, you just kind of set it down and twist that ring, and then that's nice and tight, and that's on there. So I would adjust this mic. So what it really looks like is, if I'm sitting here at our table and I'm going to adjust this microphone, I would probably do something just like that. We'll lock that in, and that would be the mic placement in this scenario. Another really cool thing about these arms is they come with these plates that are magnetic, and so you pop those off, and then you would plug your XLR cable in here, and then you would run it down over through. And so the nice thing here is that XLR cable drops down there and then right down through the bottom of the table, and then the bottom of the table has clips where you can put all those cables and keep them out of the way. And that's one of the things that we pride ourselves about our tables, is the cable management. And we try and keep clean, minimalist tabletops for podcasters so everything looks great on camera. All right, so at this point, I'm going to show you how we install one of these XLR cables. Your XLR cable is going to have 2 sides. You're going to have a male side, you're going to have a female side. So the female will always plug into The mic side and the male side will always plug into your recorder side. And so that's just going to pop right in here, and it'll click whenever it's in. And then it has these channels along the top, and so I'll set that cable right down in there, and then I'll just put this magnetic plate right over the top, and it'll snap in. And I kind of like that. It's a little satisfying click there. Let you know it's ready to rock and roll. And actually on this side, this will go down through, so I'm going to fish that down in there and pull that through. And then once that is in, snap that on. There's that nice click. We'll take this top off of this grommet, and then we'll fish this XLR cable down through that grommet. And so that is the intended purpose of these grommets. It's for any type of cable that you need to drop down through the table. Cable through the table. These clips pop down, and there's plenty on the bottom of each table. I think there's 8 or 9, and then you can just run this cable along the bottom of the table and click it in, and then you've got your cables hanging where they need to hang. And so essentially what I do is we actually have a 4-channel XLR snake, which is something that we would recommend that you pick up aftermarket or third party. You can go to B&H Photo or Amazon, and it's got color coordinated XLR cables. And so what we do is we'll run this single snake to our table, and then we'll run all of these cables into the snake. So instead of having 4 cables coming off of the table, we essentially only have 1. And so that's a nice little tip or trick to keep the cables at a minimum in your studio.